why is the training called The Lightest Touch? And there's a poem that I'm very fond of by David Whyte, and I often use it when I'm teaching. And the poem is about poetry, but I often feel that the word poetry could very easily be supplanted by the word therapy. And so the poem that Whyte has written, and if you've ever heard him recite his own poetry, it's a beautiful thing, and I would not be able to do it justice today, but the poem goes, good poetry begins with the lightest touch. And so I would say good therapy begins with the lightest touch. The lightest touch. A breeze arriving from nowhere. A whispered healing arrival. A word in your ear. A settling into things. And then, like a hand in the dark, it arrests the whole body. Stealing you for revelation. Stealing you for revelation. In the silence that follows a great line, you can feel Lazarus deep inside, even the laziest, most deathly afraid part of you lift up his hands and walk towards the light. And I feel that poem is beautiful, and I think it really encapsulates a lot of the sentiments that I think good trauma-focused psychotherapy is about. And that's why the title of the training is The Lightest Touch. But also on a kind of deeper note, part of the reason for the selection of a poetic title is to say that much of trauma practice is dominated by very scientific and neurobiological approaches today, but there's a lot to be taken from, I guess, a deeper, more poetic reading of trauma and trauma practice and psychotherapy more generally. Poetry is often framed as being kind of wishy-washy, but it is anything but that when it is done well. It is, of course, a deep awareness of, some of the fundamental layers of experience and existence. And the inclusion of a poetic sensibility is really important. I'm very fond of a German philosopher by the name of Theodor Adorno, and he famously said that you can't write poetry after Auschwitz, but he also famously said that the question of suffering has as much right to speak. The suffering person has as much right to speak as the tortured person does to scream. And there is this sense in which good thinking and good practice comes back to this point of Adorno's, which is to let suffering speak. For Adorno, the condition of all truth was to let suffering speak. And trauma work is, in a deep and profound way, just about that. It is about letting suffering speak.